In 1998, we were graced with what was the smallest digital camera ever made at the time, the Game Boy camera. Now you could snap little black and white photos anywhere and even print them out wherever you are, and stick them onto your, your pencil case or your notebook or whatever you had when you were a kid. But that was such a long time ago. In today's modern society, where we have far better cameras in our pockets at all times, why the heck would anyone want to keep using this? To be honest, it's more about the aesthetic and the nostalgia most of the time. Using such an old camera that takes such low resolution photos requires you to be rather creative with your photographs. It's also quite fun seeing people figure out what it is that you've actually taken a picture of. Now there is a whole community that takes Game Boy camera photography to the next level. Now I don't go that far, but I have been using my camera more often recently, now that the lockdown is starting to be relaxed. Hello fellow gamers, and let me show you how I've been using my Game Boy camera in 2021. When I use the Game Boy camera today, I try not to change too much from the original experience. I mean, I could go completely old school using all stock hardware, but this is 2021. We can bring in some modern luxuries. The most important thing I feel in using the Game Boy camera today is choosing the right Game Boy. And for me, it has to be my modded DMG-01. Yes, it is the biggest and it's the bulkiest of them all, but with a full set of batteries inside, it's nicely weighted, which makes it easier for me to keep the camera still when taking photos. Something else that makes this one my Game Boy of choice is the backlit IPS screen that I installed. This is where the first of today's modern perks really comes into play. The original Game Boy didn't have a backlit screen, so trying to take photos in less than stellar lighting conditions is gonna prove extremely difficult. If you can't properly see what you're taking a picture of, it's just going to be frustrating trying to take the right photo over and over again. And you can't just take a bunch of them and pick out the best one later like you can today, as the camera can only hold 30 photos. With a backlit screen, it is a lot easier to frame your shot and get the brightness and contrast just right before hitting the A button. So in short, if you want to do this today, you're going to want a lit screen. You could argue that I could have just used a system that already has a lit screen. The Game Boy Advance SP, for example, comes with a lit screen already, either a front lit or back lit one depending on your model. And the Game Boy camera certainly works with this, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it unless you want an Australian filter in every photo you take. For me, an IPS screen in an original Game Boy is the way to go. This screen brings a really bright and sharp display to the original Game Boy, and it is an absolute game changer. Now the next step in any photography is, of course, sharing your photographs. When the camera first came out, you did have a couple of options for sharing them. One way of doing that was to connect to a friend's Game Boy using a link cable and send or receive photos that way, so a perfect lossless digital duplicate is sent across to another copy of the game. But today there's really no point in doing that. You're going to want to share them to social media, aren't you? So we need a way to get the photos off of this camera and onto our computer. Thankfully today there are plenty of options for us to transfer our photos onto a computer and do whatever we want to them. Now I've been using the GB-01 that I bought last year. After connecting it over USB, it is super simple to get the photos off of the camera completely pixel perfect. The added benefit I've found with using the GB-01 is that it will let you delete all of the images on the camera. Now the camera, as we know, can only hold 30 photographs, and deleting them on the Game Boy itself is such a slow and tedious process, so having this option is very useful. Well, now that you've downloaded all of the photos from your camera, you can share them wherever you want because they've been brought in as bog standard PNG files. Except they are absolutely tiny. Well, of course they are. They're only 128 by 112 pixels, so on modern displays they're going to be no bigger than a stamp. At their original size, they're going to be awful to view on a computer or a mobile, so you're going to want to make these bigger so they're easier to see. But you're going to have to be careful resizing them though. Oftentimes, when we make an image bigger, it makes it blurrier as well, and we certainly don't want that for our Game Boy photos. Instead, try to use a resampling technique called nearest neighbour in order to keep those sharp edges intact. Now I use Photoshop for all of my image editing, so I use that to resize these photos too. I can even resize batches of the photos all at once. Now you can choose whatever size you want really, but I tend to go for about 10 times the original size. I find that is enough for most. Now of course I realise that not everyone has Photoshop, so try resizing your photos using whatever image editing software that you have. If those still make the photos blurry when resizing them, I believe the online pixel editor will let you resize them properly. But if you know of any other apps that resize images this way, especially free ones, let everyone know in the comments. So now that my photos are on the computer and they are much bigger so they're easier to see, I can share them now with anyone I want. Now one of the perks of the Game Boy camera back in the day was being able to print them out absolutely anywhere onto sticky backed thermal paper, provided that you had the Game Boy printer of course. Now as kids we would have been sticking them onto our notebooks or pencil cases, or heck even onto the Game Boys themselves. Now recently we've seen a little bit of a resurgence of portable printing, especially with the partnership between new Pokemon Snap on the Switch and the Instax Mini Link. The partner app for this printer was updated recently so it can get screenshots straight from your Switch via the QR code interface, letting you print out your snaps on the go on Instax's old style Polaroid-esque film. Does this remind you of anything? Now if you can get your Game Boy camera photos onto your phone, or even connect the little printer to your computer, then absolutely this is a viable way to reproduce the original Game Boy camera / printer experience today. Even if you don't use the resized versions of your photos, the quality is going to be far better than what the original Game Boy printer could ever achieve. But Instax film doesn't have a sticky back, so we can't fully recreate the original Game Boy printer experience today, right? Boom. Fujifilm aren't the only ones that make portable printers. I have here a Polaroid Zip Printer which uses zero ink sticky backed film. Now it's not the best portable printer on the market. In fact I believe it's being phased out now to make way for Polaroid's high print series of printers and paper, which is also sticky backed might I add. But I like that there's very little waste with this. Most other portable printers use cartridges that contain both the paper and the ink. Now since this printer is inkless, there's no messy cartridge to throw away when you come to refill it. The paper refills are cheaper than most of the other printers as well, though that could be down to it possibly being phased out anyway. But getting back to the actual printing, when it comes to the colour photos, they're a bit on the dark side with this printer. But the Game Boy camera photos come out surprisingly well. When I use the Polaroid Zip app on my phone, I can easily select the photo and scale it in the print preview before sending it to my printer. Now as you've probably noticed, the paper isn't square like the photos are, so you've got the choice of leaving part of the paper unprinted or cropping out some of the edges of the picture that you've taken. Now I prefer the latter as the prints go right up to the edge of the paper, rather than having quite a large bezel. When printing out your Game Boy camera photos, I would definitely recommend using the enlarged versions of your pictures where possible. While you can simply print out the originals, and they'll look alright, using the larger ones means that they're scaled down to the size of the paper rather than scaled up. They're going to look far sharper as a result. Now some of you may be asking, why on earth would anyone want to print these out when you can just share them digitally basically anywhere? Well, some people just prefer to have a physical picture in their hands. And the weird thing with Game Boy camera prints is, you're not just holding a photo, you're holding a small piece of pixel art. And there's something rather nice about that. So that's how I've been using my Game Boy camera today to enhance the results and the experience using modern technology. Now, is it worth the expense just for Game Boy camera photography? Hells no. I mean, you can if you wanna, you're not gonna get any judgment from me. But all of the extra hardware that I've mentioned in this video collectively cost, well, a pretty penny. But I got each of them for different reasons outside of just Game Boy camera photography. That IPS Game Boy screen makes every single game you play look stunningly bright and sharp. If you're not shy about opening up your Game Boy, this is a must-have. The GBO1 allows you to back up your ROMs for playing on an emulator, and you can back up your save games when you need to replace the game's battery. The Polaroid Zip, or whichever portable printer you choose, is really nice to have for printing out any photos you've taken on your phone quickly and easily, wherever you are. It's the combination of all of these things that makes the Game Boy camera photography possible for me, and, well, just a fun little novelty for me today. I'd say, if you like the novelty of Game Boy camera photography, go nuts. But don't forget that everything else I have here do have other uses, and all of those certainly make getting them worthwhile for many. And with that, I'm signing off, so thanks very much for watching. Are you still rocking the Game Boy camera today? Maybe you're using a different approach to what I'm using. Let everyone know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, let me know what you thought of the video with a like or dislike, and, well, there's always that subscribe button if you want to hear more from me. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all next time.